Uh, this week, we will be having a solo session with Adam Valley playing as Rita. However, that will be later this week. Um, we will be having on Tuesday, hopefully, the next full session, having both of our playtesters present. This week, a lot of complications for all three of us made it so that it would not be possible. We will be trying to keep to a schedule of once every 2 weeks for a full play, and possibly a Adam or another individual playing on the off weeks. In addition, on off weeks, I will be trying to release these extras, a little bit where I will be talking about the system and of the FARAD system, rather in this particular case, unlike some other systems, universes. This particular playtest takes place in the core campaign books universe Anelokah. The core campaign book will actually list several different variations, some other alternate universes and such that are available, but Anelokah is the one which I had first started making from Thomas and another couple of playtesters when I had initially decided to make the FARAD system, then the Myths and Legends system at that time, as it was known, actually become something more than just a variance of other systems. When I decided to actually try and create my own system world for it to take place in, and that world was Lenida. But no world, no city, nothing stands by itself without anything else present around it. And as I came to develop the system more and more, not only did I create additional species to the course starting set than what I originally had with the playtesters, rounding it out to currently 12 starter species and pre-build the classes for those who wish to get a foot in without doing it completely from scratch. Lenida was that planet, but I already had ideas in the works for what will be future expansions. Some that will be full separate books that will be included, some that might be in perhaps a different universe entirely in the case of some variations on race and technology and things of that nature. But the primary realm which Lenida is within is where the majority of the action is happening. There's obviously the other realms, as I briefly had mentioned, Tyre with Drexel, having phased through it and other realms as being a sprite in the first episode. But the universe itself is not only layered with multiple different realms within it, but it is itself part of a larger entity, and that is known as the Expanse. This universe, our universe for the sake of playtesting, is known as Anelokah. Now, Anelokah was a phrase that I had thought of back and forth multiple different times when designing the system to try and keep balance. Balance was a core part of the design in making it balance between the players and the species that they would face, between different players and each other, between the players and the game master, so that characters could do whatever they wanted to do, and the GM could balance it depending on the level of difficulty that they and their players wish to play at. Not only just for a matter of levels, but also for if they chose to utilize advanced rules or not utilize some more common ones, such as encumbrance and other things, which some people prefer not to work with, as far as how that affects speed and the like. Anelokah is a portmanteau of ante, which is Japanese for stable, and lokahai, which is Hawaiian for balance. And as such, the Anelokah universe has existed for as long as it has, and has as wide a variety of different species and cultures because most of it is relatively stable. It is a universe that has survived countless different incursion events from beings outside of the universe, and also the primary realm itself, where the majority of species have developed from incursions from beings in the other realms within Anelokah, including the fact that the infernal and celestial races, for the most part, secluded themselves for thousands, if not billions of years from re-entering the primary realm. In the case of those who had chose to re-enter it within a few thousand years of their original truce agreement, those were ones that were less powered, less enabled to devastate the universe, and they were mostly just seeking a way to escape the current condition that they had in their own realm. Just as the Fae escaped the condition that was in Tyre that drove the Great Migration toward planets like Lenida, some of the infernal and celestial species didn't like the government and culture that they were forced to be part of when they were trapped in Regsendi and Thelatos. The Kubi species, in particular, which I will touch on in another extras video, they are considered an infernal species due to their origins from Thelatos, but they have spent a good lengthy aeon in Quantil, which is another realm that is filled with stars. It is an ocean of stars and meteors and asteroids and unusual physics. It's a very dense ocean with boiling seas in certain areas, and other areas where they are nearly frozen suns with rocks of stability circling around them, and a balance of navigating between those extremes and other dangers. As such, the Kubi, after their long period in Quantil, came across Lenida when they were exploring other realms and different areas of the primary realm, and hence a few tribes who had come from Quantil to Lenida decided to stay and settle it. Anelokah as a whole, however, is mostly the universe itself, not individual species, races, variants thereof, in terms of how complex it is in balance. Anelokah is a universe where, when time began, the White Void, which is the home to the high-ordered beings known as the Adakrea, were in balance with the Praeger, who are the high chaotic beings. They are their own kingdom of life, separate from that within universes, and they survive in extreme magical and psionic and mutative conditions that most other species would not be able to. The Adakrea are like a virus. They infect universes. They seek order of mere replication and absorbing all energy that they can, eating stars, simply for the sake of continuing their own existence and trying to silence the universes so that they can return to a empty void in the expanse, and then to, from there, try to combat the Praeger, who are their eternal enemy. And if the Atacrea are a virus and the Praeger are a cancer, they're part of the life system of the Expanse itself. They expand and they mutate and they adapt, and their very blood and essence has seeded many of the different planets in the Anelokah universe with life, as a nature of just simply forcing evolution to happen at a faster rate than normal, even after they have left the universe, not of their own choosing. The Expanse, which I have mentioned a couple of times now, is where all the universes sit. It's not known how the Expanse is formed, merely that it encompasses all worlds, all realms, all universes. As universe after universe has come and gone, some have contracted to a highly dense atom before exploding outward again. Others have expanded until every star went out and turned to dust, and others still have collided with other universes and either eventually collapsed to an even more dense universe seed, or exploded into stray fragments to drift through the white void of in the Expanse, or in Prawl on the opposite end of the Expanse where the Praeger are, until they have reached another universe. For as long as any record of the Expanse has existed, the Atacrea have terrorized the universes within it. Like a virus, they just seek to spread themselves to undefended universes, to collapse it back into a singular atom, or to make it shatter, draining out all the energy in order to produce and affect other universes. In our particular universe, they haven't gained a successful permanent foothold. Anelokah was protected from their entry by some of their own creations, the Celestials and the Bodal, as well as from the Praeger and the Infernals working against them. However, the Praeger were then betrayed by the Infernals and the Bodal and the Celestials after having sealed away the Atacrea from entering. They also turn around and try to force the Praeger to stay out as well. As such, both the Atacrea and the Praeger do have influence on Anelokah, but it is distant, with the exception of those that are small enough not to draw the attention of the defensive magic and technology that was wielded in the creation of the original realms toward keeping the Atacrea and Praeger at bay. Some individual beings, Numina, which are wielding powers of immense proportion, not quite to the level of the Atacrea and the Praeger, but still of a level that is far beyond anything that most civilizations are able to wield before their star dies out, let alone in such a short period of time as they are within the snap of the fingers. They're essentially the deities of the different planets, though some of them will freely admit that they are not something necessarily to be worshipped, because of the fact that they themselves were once beings of a lesser form. Some, on the other hand, will encourage this worship because there is an actual source of mental energy and power that funnels to them from having people paying attention to them. Some will still receive this energy just from those who are deeply interested in their work and their research and trying to learn more and more about the process of becoming one, or simply becoming another higher being, even if it's not another higher powered being, such as the Numina. In that particular case, such as with those who are more honest with their origins, they still shy away from for the most part, certain aspects of dealing with the history of the universe. They will freely admit to most of them not having been present when the Anelokah and the Praeger were put at bay. However, there is a bit of unease with discussing what was present, other than just simply the first Celestials, the first Fae, the first Infernals, the Bodil. There's been enough research done to show that there are older pantheons and noumena that were hermetic and wanderers, who some might still exist at some smaller portion of power or in a distant area, but the noumena in the various sort of sectioned hemispheres of Anelokah guard their territories fairly well, and they do their best to learn more about the universe and toward protecting not only Anelokah but other universes from the Praeger and the Anelokah. However, it takes a lot of their attention to learn the secrets of how they were blocked in the first place, since the Bodil, for the most part, do not get along with the noumena, and the Anelokah and Praeger obviously would not share that information even if they were approached for such. And the first Fae, the first Infernals, and first Celestials are long gone. They had a great measure of power, but most of them greatly declined in power as they set up their own civilizations and warred with themselves after the Praeger and the Anelokah were kept at bay. Some of them intentionally empowering other lesser beings in order to raise them up in power as servants, being overthrown. Some of them just as companions to create more beings, and expending enough of their power that they became too weary to maintain the energy necessary for their own immortality. Some who sought out other universes, and more of that will be touched on with other extras and within the playtests themselves to some extent, depending on where the players go and what questions they ask. But suffice to say, Anelokah is our universe. It does contain multiple different planets. Lenida, as was mentioned, is the one where the playtest is taking place. It also contains other worlds. Our own solar system is part of Anelokah, a bit different, obviously, than our real world, but mirroring it greatly. The Lunmire, which briefly was mentioned in the playtest episode 1, Disembarkment, its homeworld is in Anelokah. Also, the homeworld of the Vilru, which is mentioned on the dev blog as well, has not come up yet, but most likely will sometime soon, as well as other planets that will be in future playtests, such as Rhaenys, Novo, Jotho, Enoian, Frigsolum, and others. But essentially, Anelokah is the staging ground for those who want to get into the system at a regularly balanced understanding of how the mechanics work, and still have plenty of play with balancing the different system mechanics, such as technology, electrical, magnetic pulses, pushing back wild magic, and wild magic itself, if strong enough, creating an inverse electromagnetic pulse, which pushes technology toward the Dark Ages, and other different elements of the mechanics themselves. Other universes will have differences. The Lamhona universe is one where the Anelokah were kept from consuming it and reproduced, but the Praetor were locked out before they were. As such, they can't offer any help to shield the universe from the brunt of primal energy and out-of-Korea influence. The Yamihoan universe, where the out-of-Korea were locked out, but the Praetor were not able to be properly locked out, and as such, the dark spores that go through Anelokah occur in even greater occurrence, and more of the universe is tainted by their corrupting nature. And then there are a couple other different universes where the Fae sided with the Infernals, almost wiping out the Celestials, and another one where the Fae sided with the Celestials and nearly wiped out the Infernals, and it goes on with other various different ones, which will be in the core books mentioned. In terms of how much detail will be given, that will depend really on how large that the core books become. They will certainly be mentioned just in terms of commenting on how different that individuals can play with the system of different universes being each unique. Each playtest system session, GM, Game Master, can create their own universe from scratch or just alter it and become different. Even though it's an open table system, players who are playing with one Game Master wouldn't necessarily be in the same universe as another one. Game Masters who do collaborate together could either intentionally make their sessions linked to the same planet, or they could make it two different planets in the same universe, or they could even make it different universes and that their players are transitioning between them. It's all up to the Game Masters and the players to decide how they want to play the FARAD system and their sessions. As such, Anelokah is not the first world, first universe that was in the Expanse, and that will be touched on a bit more. Suffice to say, the Somnium Bleed is one of the first few universes, but it is not the very first. And we will, as we're developing this system, reveal more information of that nature. And as players are interested in it, even after the core books are released, there will be supplements and expansions and other information that will be released from myself and from future individuals who will become part of Crack Sky Games in developing the FARAD system, and also some that may be from fans who will submit their own concepts for either contests or wishing to join us as part of the company. Who knows where this will all take us. I'm just happy to be working on developing it and having people playing it. And I'll catch you all on the flip side. I've got to start getting ready some more information for the next extras video, which I'll be doing up next week, but not on the same day as the playtest session itself. So, catch you all on the flip side.